So it is mid-August. It's hard to believe. Welcome to our August Canvas meeting. So I'm Brett Ackman with College Autism Network. Glad you all are here. And so many of us are entering the school year and academic year ahead. So the prompt for you all today is, what are you most looking forward to with the academic year starting or school year starting? So it can be related to something in your personal life, your professional life, something about where you live. I'll put this prompt in the chat as well. What are you most looking forward to with the academic or school year starting? So Eric is mentioning seeing my students complete their college applications. Absolutely. It almost feels too early for that, but that's how the cycle goes. Katie's ready to hit Office Depot, I think, with school supplies. Lee's looking forward to shorter lines at the local ice cream shop. Yes, so be strategic there. Aaron's excited about teaching a new group of students. Justin, I'm going into my final semester of my MSW. Wow, congratulations, that's exciting. Lots of good things on the horizon. Yeah, and Amber is excited about it being cooler, hopefully, and by October, but living in Texas, I imagine you don't get much luck there. Thanks for chiming in. This is going to be a great meeting today. And just a note for everybody, whether you're watching this now or at a later point. So all of our meetings are video recorded, so that way you can access them on our College Autism Network YouTube channel. So if you want to look at past meetings, you're welcome to do that. So it's just a nice way to kind of spotlight all of our different presenters at different junctures. Just a few logistical things to please make sure your microphones are muted if you're not actively talking, but if you have questions or thoughts, we welcome your participation. Please feel free to use the chat. And I'm also going to put in the chat a link to our meeting agenda, which kind of gives an overview of what we're going to cover. And please make sure to list your name if you're in attendance and highlight it. And Katie illustrated that already, and I know others are already doing that. So thanks for that. Just a good way of making sure we have everybody notated that you're here. So we'll have a few things before we get started with our featured presenter today, who is Amber Meyers from Tarrant County College. So Amber, as I've come to understand, has been presenting away in a lot of different contexts recently. And we're really excited to have Amber on board for today. So just a few things. As we know, many of you have been part of our College Autism Network Virtual Association of Scholars or Canvas meetings in the past. Be sure to be on our listserv so you are apprised of our future meetings and get meeting minutes and recordings. Also a great way to share research studies or other ventures that you want other folks in our community to be apprised of, and there is a lot going on. Certainly, if you aren't part of the College Autism Network community officially, you're welcome to be a CAN member, which entitles you to certain benefits. But of course, we welcome you just to participate in any way that you want to participate. And then I'm going to turn it over to our fearless executive director, Lee Williams, to share some updates about our forthcoming, how many days away is it, Lee? College Autism Summit.
60 days.
60 days. What are the updates, Lee?
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Yeah, so 2 months to go. And in fact, I was just sending out an email to presenters, reminding them to register, because presenters have to be registered. And our deadline for the early bird rates is September 15th, so a month from now. And the hotels have an even earlier deadline if you want to get the reduced rate. So make sure you book your hotel room. So we'll have our schedule of programs up on the website in the next couple of days. We've done the final tweaking so we can list all the general sessions, but we've already had the major speakers announced, and that information is up there already. Two other quick things that I want to mention. We have a new service called the Consultants Collective, and this is a group of autism support professionals across the country who are interested in serving as consultants to campuses that are looking for assistance with starting a new program, getting some training done. Sometimes it's helpful to bring in an expert from outside to say exactly the same things that you've been saying on your own campus and don't get listened to. So these consultants are available. They're guns for hire. That doesn't sound like a good word to use these days. They are professionals for hire. The other interesting thing that we're doing with CAN is something called COCO, which is an acronym for Coalition of Campus Organizations for Advocacy. Sometimes students want to start a group, a neurodiversity or autism advocacy group on their campus. They come to one of you, they say, can you help me? You say, there's got to be a better way. You can now refer them to us to COCO, which is a student-led consortium of these groups, and they will provide some mentoring and guidance. So that's all available on our website, which is right here. And yes, as Brett said, if you are not a formal member of CAN and would like to become one, it's not very expensive and it helps support our work. So please give that some thought and maybe you can fit that into your budget. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Lee. We gotta love our acronyms here at College Autism Network. I think COCO might be the most clever one so far. So very great. So yeah, a lot is certainly happening. And we know that many of you are engaged in a variety of very interesting ventures as well. And this is kind of the point where we will allocate some time if you want to share resources or news or studies with folks. I do see that there are some listed in the meeting agenda, although there isn't a name attached. So I'm not quite sure who may have entered that. So if anybody here on the call had illustrated that information regarding some, it looks like some data sets, feel free to share that at this juncture. Looks like we have some things from the Department of Education. So I would encourage you, if that is maybe useful to you in your work, to maybe check that out further. And I also wanted to point out that on our Canvas listserv recently, researcher Jess Monahan from University of Delaware is actually seeking a neurodivergent statistician to support developing a new measure for autistic employees that would examine their level of perceived inclusion in the workplace. Seems like a really cool endeavor. So Jess's contact information is there if you want to, if you might have someone in mind who could be useful to support that inquiry. But yeah, over to all of you. I know it's a smaller group today, but if there's any news or questions you want to pose to the community resources, this is a nice intimate space to be able to do that.
I have a question, but I don't know if it's appropriate to ask it now. Maybe this is best rather than waiting till the end because questions should be directed toward the presentation, but I'm wondering about the new DSM-5 TR that I guess just came out in spring, from my understanding. Does anybody know what's changed in the language around the autism diagnosis? Does anyone have any idea? I'm in Europe and my colleagues and students follow the ICD, which has now just been updated to follow the DSM-5. But if the new reviews have changed things, I'm not aware. Just wondered if anyone knew about that or had a link. Just drop a link in the chat if you know of anything. Maybe not talk about it now. Okay.
Well, we can definitely put that in the meeting minutes there, Summer, and see if someone might have some further context. I'm not sure if I have anything readily available on that, but I'm not sure about anybody else. Yeah, Lee said they'll look into what they can find on that front.
One thing I thought I could address on our minutes, that number 2 where it says search your state's Department of Education data. One charter school with 100% dual enrolled high school students, not a single student was on an IEP. There's a reason. They don't have to be. Because when you're in 100% dual enrollment, you're actually a college student at that point, and college students do not get IEPs. They're covered under ADA and 504 and no longer under IDEA. So it's less robust. They should still have accommodations, but it's no longer under IDEA. So, but it's very telling that I don't think they're well served. It would be interesting to find out, are they still receiving any accommodations? That would be interesting. It might require a more in-depth search to see if they're still receiving any accommodations.
So that would be the case even if they're under 18. I understand that they're considered college student because of dual enrollment, but if they're 16, I'm sure a 16-year-old is not likely to be dually enrolled in classes at that level, but I mean, they are under 18 legally, so they're still not
even if they're in dual enrollment at 100%.
Doesn't matter how old they are. Okay.
Yep. If they're in dual enrollment, they're no longer under IDEA if they're in dual enrollment 100%. Because then they go under college rules, which don't follow IDEA. It's a crazy, I consider it a loophole.
Yeah.
I don't consider the word loophole, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating to the students. It's frustrating to the teachers. I think it would be frustrating to the parents. Oh, I'm reading that one too.
So Amber, are you saying in that case, I'm a special ed teacher, so does that mean I don't even need to hold IEP meeting?
I think you'd still better hold an IEP meeting, but the accommodations that you write in an IEP meeting don't apply to college professors. Now, a student can take those accommodations written in the IEP, written in the IEP meeting, take them to the college's Office of Disability, and then have even those same accommodations written again into their college accommodations. And then those accommodations are valid. But if a student doesn't take that extra step, nothing. And I don't think a lot of students know that, which is what drives me crazy.
I will pass on the information. Thank you.
Yes, please. I have a slide. So that's what my whole focus is in this weird little transition from, because I think the high schools are thinking we pass them on to the college and the college will take care of them. And they're not. They're absolutely not. Because we don't even know. I come from a college standpoint. We don't know. So the trainings that I offer and will be offering to my college faculty next week are all about, so what do you do with all the kids with autism in your classes next week? That's what I'm training all next week, college faculty. So.
Good conversation. Go ahead.
We've got to even convince the students with autism, and I'm talking more about the students with the low needs, the ones that frequently, and we know the research, the students, they get out of high school and they think, I don't need all this anymore. I'm going to do it myself. And I go, let me talk to you about the data. It says you're not. And so then they don't go to the disability services. And then they start not doing well about halfway through or 3/4 of the way through the semester. It's got to be overt. We've got to talk to students overtly about how to get disability services. And we've got to destigmatize this. So.
Yeah, great conversations to be sure. And appreciate Justin, you inserting that information in the chat as well. Any other?
Oh, yeah, Sri Chen. Yes. Oh my goodness. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Are there other topics or questions on folks' minds before we head into Amber's presentation? Well, let's then shift over to you, Amber. We'll give you the floor and the sharing screen access. So we're really glad to have you on board for today to talk about autistic students and dual credit classes, I should say. And so we'll allocate probably roughly the next 25 minutes or so toward your presentation and Q&A thereafter. If you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or share them verbally if you'd prefer that way, following Amber's remarks, and we'll take it from there. So go ahead, Amber.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm still Amber. Okay. That's the title screen. You got it. Okay. So here we go. A little bit about me. So I teach communication, a lot of public speaking classes, which I find hilarious, being an autistic person, that I teach communications. But that is because back as a little college sophomore, I took the required communications class, and I found that, wait a minute, there's a class that teaches you how to do this. I'm in. And so I changed my major. So that's what I do professionally. I am also, all but my dissertation, which I should defend in December, at the University of North Texas. I am working on helping my current school, the Tarrant County College, with their autism support program, expanding it. Currently, TCC is the only community college in all of Texas to even offer a autism program at all, but it is not for students who are low support needs and are out there taking all your academic classes, and we need something there. So we're trying to put this out there. As I mentioned, I have autism. My spouse has autism. Both of our biological children have autism. One of our adopted children has autism. And when I was a foster mom for several years, so did 4 of our kids. So as I like to say, come on over to the house and watch us all not talk to each other and enjoy ourselves. So that's my running joke. So here I am. What led to my study? Well, there I was. I taught high school English and communications for 9 years. And then I shifted to be a junior high vice principal, which I call my descent into madness. And then I was a faculty at Tarrant County College, and I've been there for, I think, 11 years. And then as a person with autism, that's me there in the middle saying hi. So what happened was, whenever my college really got the bug to start offering dual credit classes, I started teaching classes at a very small high school. And there I found what I consider to be sort of the regular ratio of students with autism in the classes. We'd have sort of small classes, maybe 20 kids per class, and I'd see maybe 1 kid with autism. One time I had 2. Sometimes I have no kids with autism in my classes. The following semester, I started teaching at a very much larger high schools. We're talking one of these super high schools, 1,200 kids in a graduating class, high schools. And this is what I saw. None at all. Year after year after year. Statistically, that's not probable. it made me start to think, how is it that a small high school has sort of a normal distribution and a great big large high school has no representation whatsoever? As a parent whose autistic kids were scheduled to go to that large high school, I was not okay with that, and I needed to find out why. So I put on my little researcher brain and I started to question things. So this is what I'm researching now. The reason I have a community college focus instead of the university focus is we know from the research that most students who have autism, if they're going to go post-secondary education, they're going to touch community college at some point. And it makes sense because most of the time, if you're going to community college, you're going to live at home. After high school, it's a huge shift academically to go from the high school system to the college system. That's one change in schedule, and that's enough. For students to be asked to shift their academics and also their living situation, I see why students don't choose that, as that's too much. And then if it's away from home, you lose your primary support network, which has been your family all this time. So I think we need to talk about the community college focus there. So here we go. Then I also wanted to talk about dual credit as opposed to other things, because I think dual credit offers something, especially to the autistic community, that's unique. I didn't even know this at the beginning, but a third, actually now it's more than a third of all high school students take dual credit at some time in their high school career. Now, of course, it's more juniors and seniors taking dual credit classes. And most community colleges offer dual credit classes. What does it do for students? Well, it makes their college readiness better. It makes it more likely for them to enroll in colleges and complete degrees. But the last two things I think are incredibly important for autistic students. It increases social capital, which is all those hidden rules. That's important for any student group that is marginalized. That's students of color, students from a low socioeconomic background, and students with disabilities. Especially, I think, for students with autism who have already a difficult time picking up on those nonverbal cues where you might just get what you're supposed to do. If you need more explicit instruction, then dual credit allows you, within the safety of high school, where you might still, as long as you're not taking 100% college credit, if you're taking maybe 1 or 2 classes dual credit and the rest of your classes high school credit, you still have some support networks while you're taking a dual credit class to help you figure out, how does college work differently? How do you talk to a professor? How does homework work differently? So that it improves the socialization that you'll need, so that when you move into college classes, all those things of college readiness, enrollment, and degree completion are simply more likely to occur. So my question was, how can secondary and post-secondary schools and school personnel increase enrollment? That's it. And also support. This is a qualitative study. So I wanted to know, why are they not enrolling? Why are autistic students not enrolling at rates like their neurotypical peers? This is how I designed my study. It's a qualitative case study. And what I found is that to date, there has been no direct research seeking to identify the needs specific to students with autism taking these kinds of advanced courses. And in this study, the edges of the case are simple, which is what you need to make a case study. It's secondary autistic studies who are or were enrolled in advanced courses while still in high school. It's a very limited number. I was joking earlier that it's not looking for a needle in a haystack. It's looking for the eye of a needle in a haystack. This study was made a little bit more difficult in that there's not a school district out there that is going to tell me, an outside researcher, sure, come on in, talk to our underage students, talk to our underage students with a disability. Yeah. So I've been having a bit of fun finding students. First I started with a purposeful sample because I had connections to 2 students. And then it snowballed from there. And we've been using all kinds of networks to find students. So in my analysis, I do what most researchers who are doing qualitative case studies do. I'm checking myself for self-bias, coding, thematic analysis, comparison, and external review. Because as an autistic person, I want to make sure that I don't run down a rabbit trail thinking I already know, and I become hyperfixated on what I believe my results will be. So that's where we're going. So here's my population as I found it so far. Thus far, I have interviewed 8 students. My goal is to interview 12 students. Mostly they are male and they are teenagers. And the great news is they are earning A's and B's in all of these courses. As a result of interviewing them, I realized that I needed to expand this project and interview other people. Because, and I'll get into some of the results, the preliminary results that I found, talking about what the teenagers have said. But then it's the counselors in schools that are doing the actual enrollment of students. So I needed to find out what are the perceptions of counselors. So then over the summer, I reached out to counselors just through emails, blind emails, just said, hey, would you like to talk to me? So that's what I've done. Thus far, I've interviewed 6 counselors from different districts in the North Texas area, both large and small districts. Some of them I got to talk to in person, others it's just been in Zoom. So what we found is reasons that students enrolled. That's what I'm looking at. Why did these students enroll, the ones that I've interviewed? Because if we can find out why they enrolled, then we can duplicate that. Or we can find the holes and then fix those holes. So the counselors believed that students would be enrolling and hearing about these programs during their IEP 504 team meetings. After all, those are the places where counselors and parents, administrators, special education and regular education, and others meet at least once a year to provide guidance to the student and their family as to the educational program that will get that student across the graduation stage. It's not. Counselors believe the 504 team would help that student pick dual credit courses if the student was interested or if the family was interested. Other times, counselors thought perhaps the school leaders or the school counselors would be influential. We'll talk about that. What additional factors? We want to talk about that. And then finally, could the colleges or college personnel do anything to advance enrollment? What could we do to push that forward? Here's what I found from the students. When I shared some of these results with the counselors, they were very disheartened because not a single student reported that a teacher or a counselor ever encouraged them to enroll. Nothing. No one ever said anything to them about, hey, you know what? I think you've got it. You really ought to enroll in dual credit. You could get college credit for this. You're really smart. And that breaks my heart. And it was never brought up in their IEP 504 meetings. Of my students, half said that their parents were the ones that placed them into these classes, which indicates to me that those families already have the social capital necessary to push their children into a college education. The other half talk about that their peers were the ones that influenced them, which suggests to us that autistic students are just like their neurotypical peers in that they want to do what their peers are doing. Many of the students that I interviewed mentioned that there was a presentation when they were in junior high of students who were at an early college high school program, or even kids from the high school that would come and just talk about, hey, when y'all go to high school, here's what you can do. And that's where they heard about it. But that there weren't any adults that were encouraging the students to take the courses. So I looked at, and here's some of the themes that I was finding. Here were some driving factors. There was some trust in when you hear about some of these programs, why do you believe them? Why would you not? One student reported that a school psychologist with whom she had a great relationship. I like that one. So it wasn't a counselor and it wasn't a teacher or an administrator. It was a psychologist. She'd spent hours with this person. That person had influence. And the other one, it was a sister. Peers talked about it. And then the one that really hurts my heart is the missed opportunities, where people actually tried to dissuade them from taking the courses. It's too much stress. And then through acts of omission, we're just not telling people to do this because we think they can't. And that's just ableism, 100%. So here's what the counselors thought. When I shared with them simple facts about autism and higher ed, facts that in these meetings, we just gloss over as accepted truths, that students with autism are not doing well in higher ed, that students with autism are not doing well in employment situations. They were stunned. And one of the reasons why every single counselor mentioned that as part of their school district's mission statement was to prepare all students for college and career. And they said, oh. I go, yeah, you're not hitting it on that one, are you? And they're not. So then I asked, does anybody have any data on how your autistic students are doing once you leave your high school? Nope. No one has tracked it. No one has tried to figure out what happens. It's as if they're just graduating the students and they're out. So I'm stunned, but not stunned. Is that what you can say? But when I brought up the idea of a partnership that would begin in at least their sophomore year, with members of the college coming to talk to students about dual credit classes and talking to them about accommodations, and possibly members of the college disability support office meeting with the IEP, or at least with a flyer and some information to let the family know how to get support services in there. Every single one of them was amazingly interested in this program, to the point that on 2 occasions, they said, can I give you our director's name? And I'm just doing research. I'm not out there representing that I'm putting together a program. In fact, today I wrote sort of the director of who's running our current autism program. And I said, I need to let you know in case you get an email, just in case. So there you go. So here's what I think some implications are. First of all, for researchers, hey, any researchers out there? I may be the only one out there thinking about this. I don't know. I need some help. First of all, most research on just dual credit classes, on neurotypical people focus on urban and suburban kids. It's only recently emerging that, hey, maybe rural kids could experience dual credit classes differently. So if we then sprinkle in autistic kids with dual credit, again, we're talking about the eye of the needle. It's a really tiny population. We need to talk about how those students are being served. So can we put that? And then what is the intersectionality of autism with other groups? How can that also bring this into focus? For practitioners, we simply must have targeted recruitment efforts. The very idea that the students that I spoke to lucked into this. They had parents who already knew the social importance of dual credit, or they had friends, or they just were paying attention that day in the auditorium. And that's why they got into dual credit. That's unacceptable. We need to develop more college, high school partnerships that are overt and intentional. And we've got to talk more with the college disability to reach back, not just and be available to students, but to be more intentional about talking to students before they leave that last IEP meeting. And then another last little point that I have there was considering early college high school programs. A couple of my students that I interviewed talked about how cool the ECHS programs were as opposed to regular high school, just because it piqued their intellectual curiosity and its smaller school was less stressful. I think that would be something worth looking at now. How we support graduates now, we already know that autism support programs work. We need to have more autism support programs. I've got to work on getting buy-ins from colleges and expanding what's in place. So there it is. There's my summary. We know dual credit works. We know autistic students need more direct encouragement. We know that colleges can partner with school districts, and we've got to have more research. There's none out there. So the way to get started is to just quit talking, and we got to start doing. Thank you.
Fantastic, Amber. I think if there was a microphone, it would have dropped just now. But that was pretty fantastic. Thank you for sharing. I think there's so much to talk about now. Folks, what are your questions on your mind or perspectives you have? This is definitely, as you're saying, Amber, a very novel area of inquiry, and it seems like you're uncovering a ton. So let's dive into this.
This is such a fascinating. Thank you, Amber. I think my question to our group is, are there any programs out there to support parents during this period of time? I put a paper there. I published back in 2020, I think, looking at parent expectation. I wrote students with autism when I was submitting to this journal. And I think parent expectation is one of the very, very important factors predicting employment, predicting PSE. When I was writing the discussion, I was really kind of felt like there's not much out there in terms of what do we do now to support parents. Just wonder whether anyone have any suggestion in terms of programs, existing programs, or even manuals or coaching programs, things like that. Thank you.
I know that as part of the program that I'm proposing, there's a parent component, because you're right. Parents have been the primary support program for students their entire lives. And it sort of seems silly that the students graduate and we expect these students to suddenly be their own self-advocate. that's irrational. It's not going to work. So as part of my program, that if I can be persuasive enough and get buy-in, we would have a monthly meeting where parents can just communicate with each other and have speakers come in and talk to each other about how to support their children in this time of transition. Because we've got to do something to support the parents. As a college professor, I get lots of email from high needs parents. That's what I'm going to call them. High needs parents who absolutely want me to talk to them about their students' progress. And I have to tell them, I can't talk to you. The law says I can't talk to you at all. And sometimes I want to because their child needs guidance, but legally I can't talk to them at all. And so the parents need help in how to help their child be more independent and also support them at home. You know, how to support your child at home as they get more independent. Because where has the parent received any training on this? Nowhere. I don't know.
I'll take it. Oh, please go ahead.
Well, I just thank you, Amber, for sharing that and your presentation. I really enjoyed that too. I saw Bella had a question, and mine kind of goes along with that. They said, how is dual enrollment different from AP courses or college now? And I was just curious. I think I've heard that really like AP is fine, but really it makes more sense to go the dual enrollment. Is dual enrollment the same as like college credit plus? I think is what we call it. That's what we do in Ohio.
I'm not sure what college. So dual enrollment is taught by a college instructor, or it could be taught, or it's taught by someone with at least a master's degree in the subject. Sometimes it's taught by a high school teacher with a master's degree in that subject who is then paid by the college, but they stay in the high school. Sometimes, like my college sends professors out to the high school. Each college would do it differently. And I like the dual credit system better because you go through a regular semester with regular assignments and regular tests, whereas in AP, sure hope you can pass that test at the end. And if you don't, oh well. And that's it. You may or may not get credit at the end, whereas at least with dual credit, you kind of know how you're going along the way, and you get that social capital and that college socialization of what is a college course like, whereas AP, you don't get anything like that. You don't get any of that at all. You just take a test at the end. Yes, what June said in the chat.
Looks like there's another question in the chat regarding the benefits of taking AP tests.
AP tests have been around longer. And so a lot of people just sort of have that belief. I know in many school districts where I live, regular, school classes run on a 4-point system. Dual credit gets you 5 points, and AP classes get you 6 points, which I completely disagree with, but it could be a GPA loading thing. And that may just be in the districts around here.
Well, I took an AP course back in high school. So one class that I took, I had to get a 4 on a test, and I was 1 point away from taking it, but I did not get a college credit. So I had to pay to take the test. But I also had experience taking college now, where it's free and it gets transferred over to college. And I live in New York.
Yeah. Huge benefit that students get to try a college class with college faculty, or at least people who are certified and paid for by college faculty or by colleges, and see that they really can do it. There's a lot of states that are pushing for high schools to target first time in college people, students who maybe aren't your traditional students who may be going off to college, so those students can prove to themselves and sometimes their families that college is going to be a possibility for them. And they could graduate from high school with several college credits. Sometimes free. Some states cover the cost of tuition and books, other states do not.
Amber, what I appreciate with what you've said now and also earlier is I think there's dual credit, and so much of what you're speaking to really reinforces this dichotomy between who has social capital and who doesn't, but also financial resources, which I think is just inherent in this. And I think that just speaks to a wider issue in terms of access and just familiarity, which I think your findings illuminated, which is very unfortunate. And but ultimately, it seems like you'll be contributing to that conversation.
There's a huge gap. There's just a gap in the research. I can't believe no one else has found it. But then you have to be a college professor who wants to teach high school students. There's not a lot of us.
Any other questions on folks' minds? These are some really good prompts in terms of benefits of dual credit versus other offerings, et cetera.
I do have one quick one that maybe I just haven't done a lot of looking into. When you transfer credit, like let's say you pass your AP exam, does it just depend college-wise how much college credit that is, or is it kind of a, okay.
Yes, it does.
Amber, you had some, oh, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Brett. For children, so I think I have some students on my caseloads that they say they are a 9th grade student, but they are at 5th grade level. You know, we had hard time at high school. I taught high school for a year. I have a parent who came to me saying, you can't have my kid in anatomy class. My kid did not even know what's going on. At high school, inclusion getting so hard. So my question is, in order to do dual credit, what can we do to prepare for those students? Second question is, do you have to have a prerequisites to be in dual credit and AP classes?
For college classes, you generally have to take a type of college entrance test, and not necessarily like a SAT or a ACT, but some type of placement test. Most states have just something that shows that you are reading and writing or can do basic math. And so you have to pass those to be able to go into the dual credit programs. And so that may prove difficult because you have to, like, there are no modifications at all. So whereas IDEA allows for modifications, ADA and 504 will not allow for modifications at all. So you cannot modify college curriculum at all. You have to be accountable for absolutely every single piece of the syllabus. So June says, what kind of research do I want to do next? My next piece is I'm going to badger. Yes, that's the polite word I'm going to use. I'm going to badger people in my department or in my school to put together a 5-point program to support my low support needs students with autism who are going into academic credit classes who think they don't need support. and I'm going to put them as a cohort styled scheduling so that there's always a friendly face. Okay, cohort styled scheduling. And then every day that they meet together for a lunch that is also tutoring with peers and games and just a socialization time. And I'm grabbing all the research from everything y'all are publishing. And then it also includes a faculty component to get our faculty trained. And in this scheduling, they are only placed in classes with faculty who have had some training, and then a parent piece. And I want to see if that kind of program can increase retention and graduation. That's the next thing I want to do. And then take it national. Okay, nothing big. Because I just can't stand if we lose this amount of potential. We can't lose this amount of potential for another generation. Also, my kids can't live with me forever. Please, they have to move out. They simply must at some point.
Well, I think what you're speaking to, Amber, is just how necessary it is to scale things up, right? Because so many people in our Canvas communities and others are the ones who are leading these programs and who are enabling students to get to that next juncture, whatever they might envision. And one thing that you're speaking to kind of illuminates something that's been on my mind, because I'm writing a paper out of my dissertation on parental involvement and just the trickiness there in terms of overstepping boundaries or not being deeply familiar enough with their children and their experiences. So what are your perspectives in terms of kind of reconciling that gap between bolstering social capital, but also maintaining an appropriate level of separation so that the students can take greater initiative and be better self-advocates?
I think I would have to approach it and try to get the parents to understand you've got to let go. And I say that as a parent of a kid who just turned 18. And when I had him enrolled in a study for kids with autism, I remember part of the study was interviewing me. And it was, can your kid do these things? And I remember being blown away with, oh, he's supposed to be doing those things? I had no idea. Because I didn't know that I should have him do those things. I was being overprotective, but not knowing it. Because as a parent of an autistic kid, you lost friends and you lost family members, and everybody abandoned you when your kid had behavior issues. So I didn't have anyone else to mirror with my parenting skills. I was going it alone for all of his life. So now that he's transitioning into adulthood, I need other parents to bounce ideas off of as I turn loose of my kid, because it's terrifying. And so if I had a monthly outlet to talk to other parents with some good people from, say, disability support services, from just anyone with any kind of authority to help me as a parent figure out how to let go. Because if I won't let go first, my kid won't ever stand. And it's terrifying. So I'm trying to make the parent program from my view as a parent. It was so scary. It's still scary. Every time he drives, I'm just like, ah. So.
Thank you for sharing those canned experiences. Summer, looks like you raised your hand. Go ahead.
I'll try to make this quick. I'm not a parent. I can't imagine the anxiety that would accompany that experience. I really can't. I'm autistic myself and suffer from anxiety, but I just can't. I teach parents, some parents here. Germany has a lot of older undergraduate students, which speaks to their system of education. You can stay enrolled for a very long time. And I've got a mom, well, I had her last semester, who started a group that addressed these specific issues with parents. And it was initially for Kassel. I'm in Kassel, which is right in the center of Germany, but then it extended out into the entire state of Hessen. They just use social media to contact people. And part of the reason is that things here are just awful. It's really very difficult to get support at all, even for an elementary school student in Germany. So they're behind. And this was what prompted her to start it. But now they've gone off into these little subgroups where they've got parents joining who have children who are doing what's called the Abitur in Germany, which is the university track. So these are students that are transitioning from the gymnasium system, the academic high schools, into colleges in Germany, universities in Germany. And they had a lot that needed to be discussed with respect to access and support in universities and that sort of thing. And they did it all through social media. It started with her advocating for her 8-year-old son and getting parents in Kassel kind of involved, and they started having these meetings. This was all pre-COVID, and then they had to go to Zoom. But it's gotten bigger, and I'm just really impressed. And I felt like, I don't know if I would have the courage and stamina to do that if I were a mom, but she's got a lot of interest. People are now learning the German language. People who are here who are foreign, who don't speak German, are trying to learn the language so they can join. And it seems to be picking up speed. I don't know that that'll make a huge difference in terms of legislation and policy, but the support and the camaraderie between these parents is incredible.
It's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. Whenever, I know one of the questions was, like, can your child, walk to the store? And I thought, I'm not letting him walk to the store. And then I went home and I thought, I guess kids are supposed, I guess you're supposed to let them walk to the store. Okay, all right. I'm going to try and let him walk to the store. And now he drives across town and he's fine. But wow, that was hard. And I wouldn't have known to do it until somebody told me that's something he can do. Like, I needed to be told that. It's just, I'm in such a protective mindset because I had to be, because nobody was protecting him. And we've got to turn loose, and it's hard to turn loose. So that's why I want the parent piece to be how to turn loose successfully for everybody. It's a lot of work.
I had one more question that goes with that, if you don't mind. At Ohio State in our program, we support autistic college students, variety of different things. So if I'm thinking about like the parent part of it, right? We start talking to high schoolers before they come into us as freshmen. So if we're working on the parent pieces, maybe in those couple of years before their students graduate, it sounds like topics of like how to let their child go, be more independent would be helpful. Maybe like letting parents know the kind of skills that their children should be developing when they're working on this, and then supports that are available for colleges as their children transition, maybe some like peer-to-peer support for anxiety, things like that. Any other topics that you recommend we would cover with helping these parents?
How to stalk your child while they drive and not be seen, because I've done that. How to drive behind them yeah, I think it's important for just the daily living skills that children must be able to master before they can go off to college, and how to break those down into discrete steps for the parent to be able to do all of that. How to recognize when they're becoming emotionally dysregulated and what to do about that. Because especially for the boys, as they're about to punch all that testosterone out, right at the time they're going to leave home. Wow. what do they do with all that testosterone right then? You know, it's a weird transition. And I've had 2 boys, you know, have to make this weird transition, and they're not sure what to do with this. So I think there really has to be a how to help your young man deal with his hormones and emotions, because they don't know what's happening. It's made for some very odd conversations, very blunt, awkward conversations, but they're beneficial. And as an autistic person, I'll just be blunt with you. Yep, it's what I do.
Amber, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for
Sure.
this great conversation. I think
Thanks,
the
Brett.
community that was here today in terms of the prompts that we had was really beneficial. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Amber, again, for relaying your research, and we're excited to see it move forward as you reach hopefully those 12 student participants and thereafter. We'll see you all back here in September. Our Canvas presenter on Friday, September 9th is Kaden Stockwell, who was originally scheduled to present back in the spring, but we had to do some rescheduling. So Kaden will be here on Friday the 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern time to discuss the experiences of autistic undergraduates at the University of Virginia. So we look forward to that. And in the meantime, we'll keep you attuned to when the meeting minutes and video will be released. That'll be most likely later next week. So thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.